Marcus Aurelius ran the most powerful empire the world had ever seen. And he still woke up every single day, terrified of the exact same thing you're terrified of right now. Not failure, not bankruptcy, not some rival founder eating his lunch. He was terrified of becoming a man who performed strength instead of a man who actually had it. And 2,000 years later, that exact fear is sitting inside your company right now, dressed up as a growth strategy, and you haven't even noticed it moved in. Here's the mistake. You are not building a business. You are building a stage. And the worst part is you don't even know you're doing it. Think about the last time you posted a milestone, a raise, a launch, a hire, a number that made you look like you were winning. Now be honest with yourself for 1 second. Did you post it because it moved the company forward, or did you post it because you needed someone, anyone, to confirm that you're not behind? That question is uncomfortable on purpose. Sit in it before you scroll past it. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, not to an audience, that the love of fame is one of the most dangerous appetites a man can carry, because it makes him dependent on people who don't even understand what he's actually trying to build. He wasn't talking about vanity in the shallow sense. He was talking about something closer to addiction. The moment your decisions start bending toward what will look impressive instead of what will actually work. You've handed the keys of your company to strangers who never earned a say in it. You already know this is happening to you. You feel it every time you check the metrics that don't actually run your business. Follow account. Engagement. Some founders' highlight reel that makes your quarter look small by comparison. None of that builds product. None of that closes a customer. None of that fixes your cash flow. But it eats your attention like it does, because it feels like progress while producing nothing. Look at how this plays out in a founder's real week. You delay a hard product decision so you can announce it the right way. You chase a term sheet from the investor with the bigger name instead of the one who actually understands your market, because the name looks better on a press release. You round your burn rate up in conversation and your runway down, not because it helps you plan, but because the honest numbers don't sound like a founder who has it figured out. None of that is strategy. That's stagecraft, and stagecraft doesn't extend your runway by a single day. This is the exact trap Marcus warned against, and it's the exact trap dressed up in a hoodie and a pitch deck today. He called it the pursuit of posthumous fame, the need to be remembered, to matter to people who will forget your name within a generation anyway. Strip away the toga and the empire, and it's the same appetite driving founders to optimize for a headline instead of a product that actually works. The applause and the actual outcome are two different currencies, and most founders spend their entire careers collecting the one that expires the fastest. Ask yourself right now what you're actually building this company to prove. Not what you'd say in an interview, what you actually believe, quietly, on the nights you can't sleep. If the honest answer involves other people's opinion of you, you are not running a company. You are running a campaign. And campaigns collapse the second the audience looks away. Here's what makes this mistake so dangerous. It doesn't feel like a mistake while you're making it. It feels like momentum. It feels like traction. Every like, every comment, every congrats on the raise gives your nervous system the exact same hit that closing a real deal gives it. And your brain cannot tell the difference between the two. So you keep chasing the cheaper hit. Because it's faster and it's always available, while the harder work, the work nobody claps for, sits untouched in the background. Marcus Aurelius had a line for this. He said that very little is needed to make a happy life, and that it's all within your own thinking, your own way of seeing things. Read that again slowly, because founders skip over it every single time. He didn't say very little is needed to make a successful company. He said a happy life. Because he already understood something most founders learn only after the exit doesn't fix what they thought it would fix. External proof was never going to satisfy an internal hunger. It only feeds it. The same way salt water feeds thirst for about 4 seconds before making it worse. You can win an entire market and still walk around feeling like a fraud. Because the fraud feeling was never about the market. It was about needing something outside yourself to hand you permission to feel like enough. No acquisition offer does that. No headline does that. No number on a cap table does that. That job was always yours, and you outsourced it the day you decided your worth would be measured by people who don't even know what your Tuesdays actually look like. Think about the founders you actually respect. Not the loudest ones, not the ones with the best personal brand, the ones who kept building through the years nobody was watching. Through the version of the company that wasn't press-worthy yet, through the stretch where the only proof of progress was a slightly better version of yesterday. Those founders weren't running on applause. They physically could not have survived that long on something that unreliable. They were running on something steadier, something that didn't need a crowd to keep functioning. That's what Marcus Aurelius was actually protecting when he wrote his warning. Not humility for its own sake, something closer to self-sufficiency. A man who needs an audience to validate his direction will change direction every time the audience's mood changes. A man who doesn't need that audience can hold a straight line through a year where absolutely nothing external confirms he's right, because his confirmation was never coming from outside in the first place. And understand something about applause, since founders rarely think this part through until it's too late. It's not just unreliable, it's conditional, and the conditions can flip on you overnight. The same crowd that praised your raise will pile onto your down round. The same comment section that called you visionary will call you reckless the moment the numbers turn. If your sense of who you are was built on their approval, their disapproval doesn't just criticize your company, it dismantles you personally, because you never separated the two in the first place. A company built on substance can survive a bad quarter. A founder built on applause cannot survive a bad headline. And this is the part that should actually worry you. This mistake rarely shows up as one bad decision you can catch and correct. It shows up as 1,000 small ones, spread across months, each too minor to notice alone. A caption tweaked for optics instead of accuracy. A hire announced before the offer's even signed. A demo timed for a conference instead of for readiness. None of it feels like betrayal in the moment. Stacked together, it quietly rebuilds your company around an audience instead of the problem you set out to solve. And you won't clock the shift until you're standing in a business you don't recognize, wondering when you stopped building and started performing. Right now, somewhere in your business, there is a decision you've been avoiding because it wouldn't look good. Maybe it's cutting a product that everyone assumes is your flagship. Maybe it's stepping back from a launch date because the work genuinely isn't ready, even though the delay will look weak to people watching from the outside. Maybe it's admitting out loud that the thing you announced with so much confidence 6 months ago isn't working, and you'd rather keep performing certainty than tell the truth. Name that decision right now, not later. Not after you finish this video and go back to checking your notifications. Name the one call you are making based on how it looks, instead of whether it actually works. And understand that every day you delay it, you are paying a founder's version of the same tax Marcus warned about 2,000 years ago. The tax of building a reputation instead of building a company, and mistaking the applause for the proof that you're doing it right. Because here's the part almost nobody tells you before you start this. The applause always arrives late, if it arrives at all, and it never arrives for the reasons you expect. By the time it shows up, you'll already know whether the company was real or whether it was a performance. Because performances collapse the moment nobody's watching, and real things don't need anyone to be. Marcus Aurelius never meant for anyone to read what he wrote. That's the detail almost nobody sits with long enough to actually absorb. The most quoted Stoic in history was writing notes to himself, in a tent, on campaign, with no publisher, no audience, and no plan for any of it to survive him. He wasn't performing wisdom for Rome. He was auditing his own mind because he knew, better than anyone alive at the time, exactly how easily a powerful man convinces himself he's doing fine when he isn't. That's the fix. Not a mindset shift you post about. A private audit nobody else ever sees. Here's what that actually looks like for you, running a company in a world that hands you a scoreboard every time you open your phone. You need an internal one. A place where you're honest about the calls you made this week for the wrong reasons, the corners you cut to look further along than you are, the conversations you avoided because they'd make you look uncertain in front of your team. Not a public reflection. Not a thread. A private one, written for an audience of exactly one person. The only person whose opinion of your integrity was ever supposed to matter this much. Try this tonight. One question, asked honestly, before you close your laptop. If nobody ever found out about the decision I made today, would I still be proud I made it? Not would it perform well, not would it read well in a founder story someday. Would you still stand behind it in a room with no one watching? If the answer is yes, you're building. If the answer is no, you already know which direction you've been drifting, even if you haven't said it out loud yet. Marcus Aurelius also reminded himself, constantly and on purpose, that he was going to die. Not as a dark thought to spiral on, but as a tool, a clarifying one. He knew that almost everyone who ever chased fame ended up forgotten anyway. Their name a footnote a few generations later, their applause long since gone quiet. If that's the actual ceiling on fame, even for an emperor, what exactly are you chasing when you optimize your company for a headline instead of the work itself? The headline doesn't outlive you. It barely outlives the news cycle it was written for. This is where founders usually get defensive, so let's name the objection before you make it. You're not against building something people respect. Respect isn't the problem. The problem is which comes first in your decision-making, the respect or the result. Build the result honestly, and respect tends to follow it eventually, on its own schedule, whether you chase it or not. Chase the respect first, and you'll bend the result to fit whatever earns applause fastest, which is almost never the same thing as what actually works. And notice how the two paths actually diverge over time, because they look almost identical in year one. In year one, the founder chasing applause and the founder chasing results can post the same milestones, raise similar rounds, hit similar press. The split only shows up later, usually around year 3 or 4, right when the applause-driven founder needs the company to hold up under real pressure and discovers there's nothing underneath the announcements. The other founder, the one who was quietly building the whole time, barely notices the pressure, because the pressure was already part of the daily standard, long before anyone else was watching. Think about the actual founders who are still standing a decade after everyone stopped watching them closely. Not the ones who peaked on a magazine cover, the ones running real companies right now that you've probably never seen a viral post about. They didn't win by being unseen forever. They won because the work held up long enough, quietly enough, consistently enough that eventually it couldn't be ignored. Nobody had to manufacture that outcome for them. It arrived because the thing underneath it was actually solid. Here's the part that Epictetus would add if he were sitting across from you right now instead of Marcus. Recognition was never yours to control in the first place. Your craft is yours. Your standards are yours. Your integrity on the days no one's checking is entirely yours. But whether the market notices this quarter, whether the press picks it up, whether your competitor's launch overshadows yours this month, none of that was ever in your hands, no matter how many hours you spend trying to manage it. Spend your energy on the 2 or 3 things that were actually yours to control, and let the rest fall wherever it falls. Because it was always going to do that, regardless of how much of your attention you handed it. There's a fear sitting underneath this whole mistake, and it's worth naming directly instead of dancing around it. You're not chasing applause because you're shallow. You're chasing it because some part of you is afraid that if you stopped performing, nobody would notice you at all, that the real, unglamorous work wouldn't be enough on its own to matter. Sit with that fear, instead of running from it into another announcement post. Ask yourself what you'd actually be building if invisibility for the next 2 years was guaranteed. No headlines, no recognition. Just the work. If the honest answer is you'd still build it, you've found the real foundation. If the honest answer is you'd quit, you've found the real problem, and it was never the market's fault. That fear has a cost most founders never actually calculate. Every hour spent shaping the story of the company is an hour not spent shaping the company itself. Every conversation angled toward how it sounds is a conversation that could have gone toward whether it's true. You're not choosing between building and marketing here. You're choosing between building and defending a version of yourself that needs constant outside proof it's real. And that defense never actually ends. Because the proof always wears off by the next morning and has to be renewed all over again. Marcus Aurelius held an empire together for nearly 2 decades without needing Rome's applause to know he was doing it right. He measured himself against his own standard, written down in private, checked against constantly, adjusted without an audience's permission. That standard didn't move every time public opinion shifted. It couldn't, because it was never built out of public opinion to begin with. That's the exact quality most founders are missing right now. Not talent, not funding, not timing. A standard steady enough to survive a room with nobody clapping in it. You don't need an empire to practice this. You need a Tuesday. An ordinary, unremarkable Tuesday, where you make the quieter, harder call instead of the louder, easier one, and nobody ever finds out you had the choice in front of you at all. Stack enough of those Tuesdays, and you end up with something almost no founder can fake their way into. A company that was built the same way in the room as it was described outside of it. So here's the actual assignment, and it's smaller than you expect. Because the real ones always are. Pick one decision this week that you'll make purely on whether it's right, with zero regard for how it looks to anyone watching. Don't announce it. Don't caption it. Just make it, quietly, and notice how it feels different from every decision you've made recently, with one eye on the audience. That feeling, the steadiness underneath it, is what building on your own judgment actually feels like, instead of just sounds like when someone else describes it. You already know which decision that is. You knew before this video even started. You've probably been avoiding it for weeks, dressing it up as a timing issue or a resourcing issue, when it was never really either of those things. The only thing standing between you and it is whether you're willing to make a call today that nobody will ever clap for, and whether that's finally reason enough. If this found you at the right moment, don't let it end here. This channel exists for exactly this. For founders who want the version of success that's still standing when nobody's watching, not just the version that looks good in a highlight reel. Subscribe to Stoic Founder so the next one finds you before you need it. Drop your answer in the comments, not for the algorithm, but so you have a record of the day you stopped performing and started building. And if there's a founder in your life who needed to hear this exact thing today, send it their way. That's the whole ask. This is Stoic Founder. Go build the thing nobody's clapping for yet.